I'm just trying, these are not gotcha questions. I'm just trying to establish some basic questions, some basic facts so I can ask you some questions about them. So either you're not prepared or you're not here to answer my questions.
Senator Hall.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for being here, Mr. Madrid. But before I start, I do want to come back to, I'm flummoxed by your exchange with Senator Paul. I can't understand your position on this. Why is it that you think that taxpayers shouldn't be able to have an accounting of how you're spending money?
Senator Hawley, great to see you. We do believe in accountability and transparency.
But that's not my question. My question is, why don't you think they should be able to see how you're spending the money, that it's their money, not your money? And I just don't understand. Why is it you think they shouldn't receive an accounting of how your office is spending the money, of how SBA is spending its money? What's the, must be some philosophical objection here. I just don't understand what it is.
You should be able to see everything that we report and through our public reporting. So we do believe in accountability and transparency.
Oh, so you do think then that the public should be able to see what you spend and what you do. Is that right?
I'm replying in terms of our footprint at OED and our public reporting on our resource partners. And
so, okay, I got it. So the locus of your disagreement with Senator Paul is you just don't want to answer the questions he asked you. That's the real answer. Is that
Senator,
right?
thank you for your question. I'm here to, report on the Office of Entrepreneurial Development, my purview, and so that's what I'll continue to do.
Yeah, the reason I think it's so irritating, frankly, is because this administration and this SBA has repeatedly and consistently stonewalled this committee, and in particular the Republicans on this committee, for going on a solid year now. It's really extraordinary. So to have you come in here and say that you don't think that you ought to have to give an accounting for taxpayer money is really extraordinary. So I just want the record to reflect that I completely agree with Senator Paul and Senator Ernst that your position on this administration's position on this is just really, frankly, unbelievable. And I'm startled that you're taking the positions you are. Let me ask you about some other accountability. For this fiscal year 22, I should say, SBA submitted budget justifications that request funding increases for most of the programs and initiatives that we're here to discuss. I want to know about some of the data, however, that's been published about how effective these various programs are. For example, small business development centers, according to data collected by the SBA's Office of Entrepreneurial Development in their annual studies from 2003 to 2012, only 20% of program participants reported that the services they received enabled them to retain current staff. Only 16% reported that services received enabled them to hire new staff, and only 29% of participants said that the services they received had a positive impact on their profit margin. So let me just ask you, Mr. Madrid, does the Office of Entrepreneurial Development continue to conduct annual studies of program participants to assess the impact and effectiveness of these programs?
We report on our outcomes and our goals, and that is standard per the statute. So we report on the metrics and the goals annually, and those are.
But do you do studies? But do you do studies to assess the impact of the programs? I mean, we know that SBA did from 2003 to 2012. My staff hasn't been able to find any reports published, I think, past 2012. So this is just a factual question. Do you conduct annual studies of your program participants to assess the impact, or no?
Senator, we issue public reports, so we'd be happy to work with your office on the data that we do have and the reporting that we do have.
But do you conduct annual studies of program participants? That's my question.
We report on the data that's aggregated from our resource partners.
So that's a yes, or that's a no?
We can report on the.
When was the last time you published an annual study?
We can work with your office to give you our reporting that we have on our.
When was the last time you published an annual? I'm just trying. These are not gotcha questions. I'm just trying to establish some basic questions, some basic facts, so I can ask you some questions about them. So either you're not prepared or you're not here to answer my questions, which goes back to what we talked about earlier. So let's try again. When was the last time you published an annual report? You can read the memo your staff keeps giving. Maybe we should have the staffer come testify. He seems to be the one who's giving you the answers. We could probably make room at the table. If somebody's willing to answer questions, I'd love to hear from them. Go ahead.
Senator, thank you for your question. We report publicly, annually, on the metrics that are per the statute. We'd be happy to work with your office to supply them, the most recent ones.
Okay, so those are, you survey the participants of the program annually?
This is the data that we receive through our resource partners, like Capital Infusion, unique clients served, et cetera. We'd be happy to work with your
Well,
office.
have the performance metrics that you've seen, have they improved since the publication of the 2013 report?
I'm sorry?
Have the performance metrics that you've seen, you say that you collect performance metrics.
Yes, they have. There's some of the metrics that have improved, and I would be happy to supply them.
Give me,
to your
well, give them
office.
to me. I mean, so in 2012, only 20% of program participants said that the services they received helped them retain current staff. So what's the number now?
I can give you what we do have in terms of the Capital Infusion, and I'd be happy to work with your office.
Okay. I wish I could say this was productive, but it's manifestly not. And I don't know what to say, Mr. Chairman, other than that we'll give you a bunch of questions for the record. But if we're going to have these hearings and be able to do any kind of oversight, you're going to have to prepare, and you're going to have to come prepared to answer questions. And what this performance today, frankly, is just ridiculous. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Let me just reinforce a couple comments that have been made. First, every member of this committee is entitled to as much information as we can get for oversight. We do believe in transparency, as Mr. Madrid has said, and we want to make sure that every member has access, as well as the taxpayers have access as to how the programs at any federal agency, including the Small Business Administration, is handled. I am aware of several requests that were made by the minority for information from the Small Business Administration, and I'm also aware of that information being made available to the minority members. Whenever I've been asked by the minority for information, I have tried to facilitate that information being made available, and I think we've been successful in getting that information to the minority. So I just want to go on record to indicate that we've had cooperation from the Small Business Administration in providing members of this committee detailed information. Now, admittedly, a lot of this is not involved in the entrepreneurship programs. This is other areas that have been more of interest to the Republican members. But in regards to the entrepreneurship programs, many of these are, as I said, particularly on the Navigator programs, a new program, and we do really want to oversight that. So we do want to make sure that we get timely information. And let me just reinforce one of the messages from my Republican colleagues. During the last administration, we had significant challenges in getting information as to how the new programs set up under the CARES Act were being administered. We needed that information as we were adjusting the policy and deciding whether to replenish the funds. And we couldn't get that information. We knew there was something needed to be adjusted, but we didn't have the specific information in order to do it, even though we were certain that the SBA had that information, it just wasn't making it available to us. So as an effort to try to correct that, we actually put language in the statute to require timely information to Congress so that we could adjust policies. So this has been a constant challenge in regards to those who administer the programs and getting information to Congress. And it's critically important that we get timely information so that if resources are needed or adjustments in policies are needed or something's not going right, we can work together to make sure that the funds are used in the most cost-effective way. Let's be pretty clear about this. The SBA was charged during COVID-19 with an unprecedented amount of responsibilities. Over $1 trillion of assistance was given out under the umbrella of the SBA. They had never before come anywhere close to that amount of money being allocated over multiple years. So this was a new challenge, and I think by and large we were very proud of the manner in which these programs were stood up, the amount of extraordinary work the staff put in to make sure these timely aids could be gotten. So I just really want to make it clear that despite some of the questions and the tone of the questions, I do believe we've had cooperation from the SBA. I would like to see more timely information made available to us so that we can do our responsibility, and would urge the administration to be sensitive, not just to the Inspector General, but to Congress, to make sure that we get timely information in order to properly be able to review programs. With that, Mr. Madrid, thank you very much for your testimony, and we're going to turn now to the second panel.
Thank you very
As I explained at the beginning of this hearing, there are votes going on the floor of the United States Senate. So Senator Paul was kind enough to stay here so I could cast my vote. He's now back voting on the Senate floor. We have 6 witnesses on the second panel. I believe Senator Paul may wish to make some additional comments in regards to 3 of these witnesses that were invited at his request. So what I will do is give brief introductions for all 6, but recognize that Senator Paul may very well wish to supplement that in regards to the 3 witnesses that he invited to the panel. So let me welcome all 6 of our witnesses. Oh, okay. Great. What I will do is try to introduce this, if I can, in the order in which we'll be asking you to speak. Our first witness will be T. Rowe, who is the President and CEO of American Small Business Development Centers. Mr. Rowe has a long history of legislative and advocacy experience on behalf of the small business community. Prior to joining America's SBDC, he served as the Associate Administrator for Congressional and Legislative Affairs for the United States Small Business Administration from 2005 to 2009. Next would be Mr. Michael Hendrick, who is a Senior Fellow and Director of State and Local Policy at the Manhattan Institute. His writings have appeared in various national publications, including the National Review, the City Journal, and the National Affairs. He holds a master's degree in international relations from the University of St. Andrews. Our third witness would be Corinne Hodges, who joined the Association of Women's Business Centers as CEO in January of 2019 and is charged with bringing about enhanced sustainability and increased capacity to the association and its members. Her immediate priority is the modernization and reauthorization, an issue I want to talk about, of the Women's Business Center program, while building capacity throughout the growing network of 135 women business centers. She resides in beautiful Brunswick, Maryland, with her husband of 16 years and her 14-year-old child. Our fourth witness is Chris Edwards. Chris Edwards is the Director of Tax Policy Studies at Cato Institute and serves as a member of the Fiscal Future Commission of the National Academy of Sciences. Prior to joining Cato, he served as a senior economist at the Joint Economic Committee, a manager with PricewaterhouseCoopers, and an economist with the Tax Foundation. He holds a bachelor's in economics from the University of Waterloo and a master in economics from George Mason. Our fifth witness is Bridget Weston. Bridget Weston is the CEO of the SCORE Association, where she provides executive leadership and works directly and collaboratively with the board of directors to establish the vision and direction of SCORE. Additionally, she has served as a member of the Futures Task Force that created SCORE's vision for 2025 and has been a leader in the FY 2020 tactical plan for SCORES. And rounding out the panel is Hannah Cox, Content Manager and Brand Ambassador for the Foundation for Economic Education and the host of the podcast Based Politics. Her work revolves around the defense of free markets, individual liberty, and limited government. Before turning to the witnesses, let me recognize the ranking member, Senator Paul, if he wants to make any comments in regards to these. He's fine. Okay. I hope I did a good job introducing your witnesses. I did the best I could.
Thank you, Chairman Carter.
I should point out, without objection, your full written testimony is to be made part of the record. You may proceed as you wish.
Thank you, Chairman Cardin, Ranking Member Paul, Senators. Thank you for inviting me to testify. I'm the president of America's SBDC, the Association of Small Business Development Centers. For over 40 years, SBDCs have been providing services to small business owners throughout the nation. We operate out of our host institutions and operate statewide, but while SBDCs may be headquartered at colleges and universities, our centers are in the communities. That's why you'll find SBDCs at the St. Mary's County Economic Development Office, the City Hall in Berea, Kentucky, or the Boulder Public Library. SBDCs help all small businesses at all stages. Roughly 50% of our clients are women, 10% of our clients are veterans, and minority clients comprise about 38% of our client base. In an average year, we provide over 1.5 million hours of counseling and training to over 500,000 small business owners and their employees. And that assistance has generated results. From 1990 to 2020, our clients accessed $82 billion in capital, increased their sales by $134 billion, and created 4 million jobs. And that helped generate over $11 billion in tax revenue. Now, as I laid out in my written statement, we offer a wide variety of assistance, so I would really like to just focus on a few things. First, our COVID pandemic response. Over the last year and a half, SBDCs have done over 3 years' worth of work. We participated in over 3,500 webinars and assisted over 315,000 people just in the first few months of the pandemic. Our networks opened new centers like the 9 in Pennsylvania, hired new advisors, and pivoted to provide specific services aimed at helping small businesses weather the pandemic. We assisted them with billions in financing through PPP, EIDL, SVOG, and restaurant revitalization. And now, hopefully coming out, our client surveys show us that the most urgent need is finding new customers, which was also their most frequent challenge during the pandemic. Of course, they also still need help with strategic planning, digital marketing, supply chain flexibility, and employee retention. Going forward, we see small businesses increasingly relying on technology. That's why we teach cybersecurity as well as social media. We've based our cybersecurity program on the DoD's cybersecurity maturity model. The Delaware SBDC's Data Assured program covers all facets of that DoD guidance to provide basic education for small businesses. And it was nationally recognized by the Department of Homeland Security and has been adopted by over a dozen other SBDC networks. Now, these changes are all going to present significant challenges in communities, underserved communities, particularly with limited broadband access. And those are both urban and rural communities. And to overcome that, SBDCs are increasing our outreach, working with Urban League chapters, Black and Hispanic chambers to ensure that we're reaching everyone. And we have centers at 21 historically Black colleges and universities. And to further that effort, we've begun the Inclusivity Challenge, based on our Northern California SBDC's Inclusivity Project. The Inclusivity Challenge is all about helping all entrepreneurs overcome impediments to their success. That effort is complementary, we believe, to the Community Navigators program. In fact, several SBDCs are already engaged in Community Navigators. We're dedicated to finding the most effective ways to deliver services to small business. And to that end, we strongly support reauthorization of the entrepreneurial development programs. We think it's time to review and renew the commitment to assisting small business. I have one final item, and that's the need for collaboration and cooperation between all small business programs. Now, our 3 programs work well together, but there are so many more across the federal government, and frankly, we need to integrate all those activities so we can all be more effective and cut out what I consider to be unnecessary friction and silos. That concludes my testimony. I look forward to any questions you all might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Hendrick.
Chairman Cardin, Ranking Member Paul, members of the committee, thank you for the honor of participating in today's hearing. My name is Michael Hendricks, and I serve at the Manhattan Institute. And today, I want to be clear at the outset, entrepreneurial success makes the American dream a reality. New businesses create jobs, foster opportunity, help build vibrant communities, and empower marginalized Americans. And the SBA, through its resource partners, has committed to assisting these entrepreneurs, and they should be applauded for their worthy mission. But my message today is also simple. The SBA's entrepreneurial development programs and initiatives are too often opaque, ineffective, and duplicative. We must find a better way to serve America's entrepreneurs. First of all, the track record and oversight of the SBA's entrepreneurial development program is spotty at best. If these programs helping small businesses were small businesses themselves, they would have failed. I've visited these offices before. At a startup hub, I was told my first step as a technology entrepreneur was to visit the library to learn Microsoft Word. And after that, to write a business plan, which I could design with MS Paint and clip art. Not only was this advice clearly out of date, it was also out of context. Worse yet, the SBA and their partners are barely keeping track of whether their work actually works. The SBA's Inspector General has found again and again that the agency has poor oversight over its resource partners and the taxpayer dollars they're spending. For instance, they were not accurately measuring or reporting whether SCORE was achieving any goals or, quote, assessing whether the program achieved its intended purpose. I can't imagine they'd advise their clients to do the same. Nor would I hope that they would recommend their own management practices. The SBA's recent multi-million-dollar hub for educating small businesses during the COVID-19 pandemic ended up helping just 1% of the businesses it was intended to serve. And out of 14,000 resource partner counselors, only 62 completed any of the training intended to help them help businesses. Just 62 out of 14,000. The SBA's resource partner network is also duplicative, plain and simple. When the SBA program and programs like SCORE were launched, there weren't many resources like them available, but there are now. Today, if you'd like a free business plan, Google gives you 3.5 billion results. The Harvard Business Review will show you, quote, how to write a winning business plan, alongside Google's 57 million video results answering the same question. If you're in need of mentoring, there's a long list of organizations now ready to help. We see programs in the private sector helping entrepreneurs without the need for government subsidies. Meanwhile, the agency's small business development centers, women's business centers, veterans centers, SCORE chapters, they all provide similar services. And that's according to the SBA's own Inspector General. Many of these facilities are also located close to one another. For instance, 95% of women's business centers are within 25 miles or less of an SBDC or SCORE office. When the SBA's own Inspector General came before this committee in 2011, she had a simple message: reduce this duplicative business counseling, and that's a quote. Nearly 60 years, the SBA's entrepreneurial development program has yielded questionable results and mounting inefficiencies. During the same time, new business formation has plummeted, not risen. Yet every new decade has brought new initiatives, new requests for new funding. The folks in these organizations are well-intentioned, they have a worthy mission, they're good people. But ideally, groups like SCORE and others should be able to stand on their own 2 feet without tens of millions of dollars in federal subsidy. They should compete just as their clients must. Of course, ultimately, we must ask, is the federal government best placed to offer entrepreneurs advice? Thank you.